This is going to be a huge year for Marvel fans and the ever-expanding mythos of the MCU. WandaVision just had an explosive season finale. Here on MythMachine, we're going to talk about it and what it sets up for the future of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Let's do it. Overall, I thought WandaVision was a lot of fun. Throughout the season, it had hits and misses for me, definitely, but when it did hit, it hit hard. The action was phenomenal, the cinematography was great, and for the most part, the visual effects were awesome too. There were a few times that the CGI felt a little bit cartoony, but I also think that comic book movies or content as a whole kind of gets a little bit of a pass when it comes to VFX and CGI because of the material that it's based on. But what was most impressive is that this season finale, for the most part, felt on par with watching any movie in the MCU, especially when it came to the action. I mean, I was actually pretty impressed with what they were able to do on a smaller scale and a smaller budget. And I especially enjoyed the fights that took place in the air, both between Vision and Agatha and Wanda. Anytime anyone is flying around, it just looks phenomenal in this episode. I've directed and worked on multiple projects that have involved wire rigging and stunts, and it's definitely a really hard thing to pull off and to make look good and to make look natural. Just the way that gravity pulls on you, no matter what, it's just gonna look a little bit off. So huge props go out to the rigging and stunts team that worked on this series because all of the stunts were phenomenal. But what was really fun was the story here. And from a story standpoint alone, this did everything that it needed to. This finale answered almost every big question that we had from previous episodes. Who is Agnes or Agatha? What's her motivation? What does she want? And her acting was great here too. I really enjoyed this character, and I'm glad to see that she's probably sticking around. In this episode, Wanda kind of sets her memory back just like all of the other villagers had been throughout the whole entire series. And so there's a really, really good chance that somewhere down the line in the MCU, she's gonna pop back up and have her mind cleared and she'll be back to normal. Wouldn't be surprised if we have to team up with her in some sort of way or use her to get some sort of information. We also found out who the mysterious Ralph was that Agnes was always talking about, and also who the imposter Pietro was. They're the same person. They're an actor who is in this town named Ralph Boner. And throughout this series, everyone has had all these crazy speculations and theories on who these people were, who these answers were to these questions that had been set up. And I've seen a lot of people that have been upset with the answers that we got, which I don't know is necessarily fair to the filmmakers and the writers on this because we projected those things. They never said, hey, this is what the answer is going to be. We said, this is an answer that we think it could be. This is an answer that we want. And while the answers that we got may not have been the answers that everyone wanted, they were the answers that we needed. I mean, one of the absolute worst things that you can do in any storytelling of any type is set up questions and not give answers. Lost. Sorry, JJ, I love you, but it's been like 10 years and we still need answers. Anyone? Almost everything was answered, and the things that weren't answered were little plot points that have been planted for later on in the future of the MCU. I really enjoyed that they had this tiny moment with Dottie and the rest of the villagers where you really see the emotional weight, the impact that what Wanda has been doing for the entirety of the season is having on these people and their lives, and the lives of their families as well. It just adds a lot of gravity to the consequences of what's been going on. There's stakes, even for these little side characters, and that's important for any story. But my main point here, and the thing that I admire most about this series, is that it paid off everything that was planted. And that's not something that we're guaranteed to have in modern storytelling. A lot of filmmakers and writers tend to set up these big fantastical questions that intrigue us and get us hooked, but then they never really deliver on the answer. But this finale also planted some new story elements and plot points that we just know we're gonna get into later. And in my personal opinion, that's one of the best things about the MCU. You always know that the story you're investing time in will have some sort of impact in the future stories. Even the standalone stories can have huge payoffs years and years down the road. And so stories like this make rewatching the MCU so fun because you can go back and rewatch old movies or episodes with a whole new perspective and context. Like I remember after seeing Endgame, I went back and watched the original Avengers. And while I was watching during the scene of the fight in New York, I knew that while this was going on, all of these other events were going on at the same time, right? Like Future Hulk coming back with the rest of the team to try and talk to the Sorcerer Supreme and get all the Infinity Stones and all of that madness, right? But it just lended this whole new experience. It was like I was watching the movie for the first time again. And I have a really strong feeling that that's gonna be the same thing for WandaVision. When we come back and we watch this series, we watch this finale, we're gonna have a whole new context because it's gonna actually have a lot more meaning to things that happen down the road. For example, White Vision, he's not under the thumb of S.w.o.r.D anymore. He's now off in the world on his own somewhere, and you just know he's gonna come back. Monica has discovered these powers that she has, and she's met the Skrull. And Wanda has now accepted her powers as the Scarlet Witch. She's had a taste of that power, but also a taste of what it's like to have a loving family that she cares about deeply. And you know that she's not gonna let either of those things go. So with the post-credit scene tease where she's kind of reading the book and learning about that magic, that chaos magic, we know that it's setting up a lot. And we already have some pretty concrete details on that, in the sense that we know that she is going to be a heavy hitter in Doctor Strange 2, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. And you may have missed it, but during that scene where we see Wanda, we also hear the Doctor Strange theme being played in the background. So it's incredibly possible that Doctor Strange 2 will just continue this story, and it'll basically be Doctor Strange plus WandaVision Season 2. We also know that the two actors who play the twins, Billy and Tommy, were seen filming in London during the time that Doctor Strange 2 was being filmed. So we're safe to assume that they will also come back in some capacity. But it's also been heavily rumored that Wanda will play some sort of role in Spider-Man No Way Home. While I really enjoyed WandaVision as a whole, I think that the thing that I am excited for most is what it sets up for the future of the MCU. I mean, it is the best time ever to be a Marvel fan. Think about it. We're getting new content from Marvel almost every week this year. Last year, we got pretty much nothing. I mean, 2020 just sucked in general, but some MCU content would have made it a little better. But this year, we've obviously got WandaVision. Now we're getting Falcon and the Winter Soldier. We get Black Widow. We get Loki. We get Shang-Chi. We get What If. We get Ms. Marvel, The Eternals, Hawkeye, and Spider-Man. And I probably missed one or two in that list. Either way, that's an insane amount of MCU content coming for the rest of this year. But the great thing is that if there's one thing that WandaVision just proved with its season finale, it's that Marvel can make great streaming shows that can deliver the same things that we get from a feature-length film. And that makes me pretty pumped for the future of the MCU this year. If you're as excited as I am for these stories, check out my other video on why the MCU is one of the greatest modern myths. But if you're also excited for the DCEU, check out this other video on why, not only as a movie fan, but as a filmmaker, I am so excited for the release of the Snyder Cut. WandaVision was a blast. I had so much fun with that show, and we're in for a wild ride with the future of the MCU, but the ride is just starting. We're gonna get all this new content just starting in a matter of weeks. So hit subscribe, because here at MythMachine, we're gonna continue to cover all of this great content that's coming out this year. Guys, the support over the last few weeks has been absolutely insane and incredible. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you around.